Hey people, what's up? So thank you so much if you are watching this video for the third part, that's man search for meaning. And let's get started with the continuation. We were in this line, that is the significance. Okay. Yes, the significance of the finger game was explained to us in the evening. It was the first selection for the first verdict made on our existence or non-existence. With the great majority of our transport, about 90%, it meant death. Okay. The sentence was carried out within the next few hours. Those who were sent to the left were marched from the station straight to the crematorium. This building, as I was told by someone who worked there, had the word bath written over its doors in several European languages. On entering, each prisoner was handed a piece of soap, and then, but mercifully, I do not need to describe the events which followed. Many accounts have been written about this horror. We who were saved, the minority of our transport, found out the truth in the evening. I inquired from the prisoner who had been there for some time where my colleague and my friend had been sent. Was he sent to the left side? Yes, I replied. Then you can see him there, I was told, where a hand pointed to the chimney few hundred yards off, which was sending a column of flame up into the grey sky of Poland. It dissolved into a sinister cloud of smoke. That's where your friend is, floating up to heaven, was the answer, but I still did not understand until the truth was explained to me in plain words. But I'm telling things out of their turn. From a psychological point of view, we had a long way to in front of us from the break of that dawn at the station until our first night's rest at the camp, escorted by SS guard with loaded guns. We were made to run from the station, past electrically charged barbed wire, through the camp to the cleansing station. For those of us who had passed the first selection, this was a real bath. Again, our illusion of reprieve found confirmation. The SS men seemed almost charming. Soon we found out their reason. They were nice to us as long as they saw watches on our wrist and could persuade us in well-meaning tones to hand them over. Would we do not have to hand over all our possessions anyway? And why should not that relatively nice person have the watch? Maybe one day he would do one a good turn. We waited in a shed which seemed to be the anteroom to the disinfecting chamber. SS men appeared and spread out blankets into which we had to throw all our possessions, all our watches and jewelry. There were still naive prisoners among us who asked, to the amusement of the more seasoned ones who were there as helpers, if they could not keep a wedding ring, a medal, or a good luck piece. No one could yet grasp the fact that everything would be taken away. I tried to take one of the old prisoners into my confidence. Approaching him furtively, I pointed to the roll of paper in the inner pocket of my coat and said, "Look, this is a manuscript of a scientific book. I know what you will say, that I should be grateful to escape with my life, that should be all I can expect of fate, but I cannot help myself. I must keep this manuscript at all cost. It contains my life's work. Do you understand that?" Yes, he was beginning to understand. A grin spread slowly over his face, first piteous, then more amused, mockingly insulting, until he bellowed one word at me in answer to my question, a word that was ever present in the vocabulary of a camp inmates: shit. At that moment I saw the plain truth, and did mark the culminating point of the first phase of my psychological reaction. I struck out my whole former life. Suddenly there was a stir among my fellow travelers, who had been standing about with pale, frightened faces, helplessly debating. Again we heard the hoarsely shouted commands. We were driven with blows into the immediate anteroom of the bath. There, we assembled around an SS man who waited until we had all arrived. Then he said, I will give you 2 minutes and I shall time you by my watch. In these 2 minutes, you will get fully undressed and drop everything on the floor where you are standing. You will take nothing with you except your shoes, your belt, or suspenders, and possibly a truss. I'm starting to count now. With unthinkable haste, people tore off their clothes. As the time grew shorter, they became increasingly nervous and pulled clumsily at their underwear, belts, and shoelaces. Then we heard the first sound of whipping leather straps beating down on naked bodies. Next, we were headed into another room to be shaved. Not only our heads were shown, but not a hair was left on our entire bodies. Then, on the showers where we lined up again, we hardly recognized each other, but with great relief, some people noted that real water dripped from the sprays. While we were waiting for the shower, our nakedness was brought home to us. We really had nothing now except our bare bodies, even minus hair. All we possessed, literally, was our naked existence. What else remained for us as a material link with our former lives? For me, there were my glasses and my belt. The latter I had to exchange later on for a piece of bread. There was an extra bit of excitement in store for the owners of trusses. I was in the evening. The senior prisoner in charge of our hut welcomed us with a speech in which he gave us his words of honor that he would hang personally from that beam. He pointed to it any person who had seen money or precious stones into his truss. Proudly, he explained that as a senior inhabitant, the camp laws entitled him to do so. Where our shoes were concerned, matters were not so simple. Although we were supposed to keep them, those who had fairly decent pairs had to give them up. After all, they were given in exchange shoes that did not fit. In for real trouble were those prisoners who had followed the apparently well-meant advice of the senior prisoner and had shortened their jackboots by cutting the tops off, then smearing soap on the cut edges to hide the sabotage. The SS man seemed to have waited for just that. All suspected of this crime had to go into the small adjoining room. After a time, we again heard the lashings of the strap and the screams of tortured men. This time it lasted for quite a while. Thus, the illusion some of us still held was destroyed one by one, and then quite unexpectedly, most of us were overcome by the grim sense of humor. We knew that we had nothing to lose except our so ridiculously naked life. When the showers started to run, we all tried very hard to make fun, both about ourselves and about each other. After all, real water did flow over the sprays from the sprays. Apart from that strange kind of humor, another sensation seized us: curiosity. I have experienced this kind of curiosity before as a fundamental reaction towards certain strange circumstances when my life was once endangered by a climbing accident. I felt only one sensation at the critical moment: curiosity as to whether I should come out or alive or with a fractured skull or some other injuries. Cold curiosity predominated even in Auschwitz, somehow detaching the mind from its surroundings, which came to be regarded with a kind of objectivity.